answer any questions that you have for the week or the month. First, I continue to be overwhelmed by the progress that we're making recovering from Irene. And every day we're opening up more roads, more bridges, getting more Vermonters into temporary housing. And communities across Vermont are opening up more back roads, which is heartening. The need for resources continues to be a challenge. And as hard as our congressional delegation is working to get every dollar that they can for Vermonters, as hard as I'm working to try to get every dollar we can, government is not going to be able to close the gap between the homes, the property that were lost, and the programs that are available. So I'm just urging Vermonters to continue to be as generous in these tough times as you can possibly be. To call 1-800-VERMONT if you are able to give dollars to the funds that will go to the Vermonters who need it the most. So anyone who has the capacity to help more than you already have, please call 1-800-VERMONT and direct your dollars to the funds being chaired by David Coates and others who are doing a great job of getting those dollars to the Vermonters who need it. Second, just want to mention a word about the what I've been reading about concerning the state employees situation. I don't think Vermonters have ever been prouder of their state employees than we have been during the recovery from Irene. Every day I see construction workers, highway workers, men and women who've literally been working 16, 17-hour days since Irene hit us over a month ago, working weekends, working overtime, to try to get our roads and bridges back in shape, to try to get Vermonters back to work. And I just can't express enough my dismay at the 90 state employees who are doing an extraordinary disservice to the rest of our hardworking employees by asking for double time when they don't deserve it. The notion that we would have hardworking transportation workers rebuilding our roads and bridges, and then someone who was displaced from their office space in Waterbury would be getting paid double time while the transportation worker is getting paid as they normally would, a lower wage, just seems extraordinarily unfair. So I have urged the State Employees Union to ask those 90 Vermonters to withdraw their grievance, and join the rest of the state employees who worked so hard for Vermonters to get us back on track after Irene. Be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
What was their response?
You know, all I can tell you is, you'll have to ask them that. All I can tell you is I feel really strongly about this. We all know that the provision in the contract is set up for storms. We have them frequent, where we get a lot of ice and snow and states shut down, and we ask some employees to put themselves in harm's way by coming to work that day. And the contract clearly states that in case of that emergency, while that emergency is going on, they should get double pay. It's, I think, a real disservice to the hardworking state employees that are doing so much for us right now, to put them in a position where their peers are asking for something so unreasonable and so contrary to the spirit of the recovery in Vermont, which is people working together out of the goodness of their hearts to do the right thing for Vermont.
They're basically saying there's this contract provision that could have been addressed really simply with just a notification that didn't happen. They said they'd asked repeatedly for this notification to go out. It didn't.
I see no reason to rehash the claims of the past. We see it differently. What I'm saying is the 90 state employees who filed this grievance in the best interests of the state of Vermont and the best interests of the VSEA should withdraw immediately.
And if they don't withdraw it?
That's the judgment they make.
Do you think this is going to end up as fodder for Rush Limbaugh and Bill O'Reilly? I mean, it seems like, you know, almost ideal for some right-wing union backers to get after it and
would hope, but who knows?
When did you urge them to withdraw their grievance?
Well, my administration's been working on that for some time, but I did so this morning.
Okay, a personal phone call with union leaders?
In a face-to-face with the cases. No, with what is his title, John? President.
If this ultimately were to, I mean, from a legal matter, and you've made the point about the disservice and the insult, but as a legal matter, were this to go to the Labor Relations Board, do they have a case?
No, I don't think they do. I think the contract to any objective person is designed for exactly what it's used for, which is when there's a blizzard, a snowstorm, and we require some people to come back to work and put themselves in harm's way to get there, whether it's ice or snow that they're driving through, getting down roads that are impassable, that they should get compensated double time for that day or the period of that snowstorm or ice storm. That's what it's intended to be.
What do you know about Green Mountain Coffee Roasters and their plans? It might be substantially 800 new jobs. Is that firm?
You know, I'm going to let Green Mountain Coffee Roasters comment on exactly what it means from their perspective, because they're running a company. All I can tell you is I have a great relationship with Green Mountain Coffee Roasters. Vermont does. They've become an incredibly important part of our economy. They're growing quickly. They're a great company. They're well managed. They have an extraordinary clear vision of where they need to go. I toured the facility and met with the CEO and others just a couple of weeks ago again. They're great corporate citizens. As you know, they've donated generously to our Irene recovery, and we're going to do whatever it takes to keep Green Mountain Coffee Roasters growing in Vermont. And I'm just delighted that their Act 250 permit was approved and that they're going to expand right here in Vermont.
Well, would they need better transportation infrastructure if those jobs do locate in Essex? I mean, as you know, that's been an issue for decades up there, and the Cirque Highway is sort of off the table, but that may bring that issue up again, that you're a bunch of new commuters who would need a way to get to work.
They've never indicated to me that the transportation infrastructure isn't adequate to do what they need to grow in Vermont. I also just want to go back to the Cirque comment we just made. The Cirque judgment was made because regardless of the effort of 5 or 6 past governors, there was no way that the Cirque Highway project was going to happen. So we are working hard. We've been thrown off for a few weeks by Irene, but we're not going to lose our focus to come up with an amended Cirque plan that alleviates congestion in Chittenden County. It's going to have several stages: short-term, intermediate, and long-term investments. And I'm committed to making that happen. I'm not going to let Irene wash that down that river either.
Later today, the group from Waterbury, large group, that encouraged Waterbury businesses to show up to make their case publicly, express themselves, essentially directing their concern at you for your public statements, and you said that you're going to have a difficult conversation. We don't know how long that conversation might take, and are you leaning one way or another? Do you have any new information about the?
Well, let's just review where we are. You know, I'm incredibly sympathetic to the business people in Waterbury and the residents of Waterbury who are concerned about the effects of Irene on that community. It's a vibrant community. You know, I personally love to go to the Alchemist and other businesses in Waterbury. I think we all do. We want to see them grow, thrive in the future. And we want to make sure that Waterbury is a vibrant business community and a great place to live. It will be. It will be. What we're doing in terms of the straight complex is going through the same exercise that we're asking everyone in Vermont to go through if we're going to succeed in rebuilding Vermont better than the way we found it before Irene. I'm bound and determined to make that happen. We're going to turn this crisis into an opportunity. What that means is we look at the possibility of going back to Waterbury, rebuilding, what it'll cost, how long it'll take, and how prone or likely would we be to more flooding. Is there a way to mitigate the possibility of being right back here again next year or a year from now? So that's the first question. What it costs to go back? If we go back, how do we not get back to the same boat we're in right now? Second, are there other places that we could put state employees in either a new building where everyone's under one roof, a green, efficient, smaller new building that's less expensive to maintain? And third, are there existing spaces within the community, the greater Montpelier area, Waterbury, Barry, the surrounding communities, where we could use existing space that would make more sense than the current Waterbury complex? In order to answer those questions, we want to get those questions quickly, leave as much uncertainty out there, as little uncertainty out there as possible. At the same time that we make the right decision, it's going to be a public process, a transparent process. What I find disturbing and what gets my blood boiling is when I read that at a time when the citizens of Waterbury and from every community, from Richmond to the Massachusetts line, has residents who've lost their homes, lost their belongings, desperately need money, cash to get back on their feet, that some community would consider using $25,000 to hire a lobbyist to advocate their case in a state house, when those dollars, in my judgment, would be better spent right down there in Waterbury on the people who are trying to rebuild their homes and businesses. So let's be sensible about this. This is going to be an important dialogue. The best lobbyists that Waterbury has, among others, is their two representatives, Representative Ellis and Tom. They're able to make the case, they will, and obviously town manager, select board, and the whole community. But let's not get irrational in our response to Irene and send in $25,000 to pad some lobbyist wallet that should be going to people who desperately need it to recover from Irene. Come on, let's use good old Vermont common sense.
So they're basically looking for a commitment now from you, from your administration, that there will be a state presence in Waterbury. Can you say that now?
No, but what I can say is that we're going to make the right decision for all the taxpayers of the state of Vermont. We're going to involve Waterbury in that decision, just as we'll involve the other communities that might be impacted, and that we go into it in the knowledge that whatever the verdict is, whatever the decision is, we want to make sure that Waterbury thrives. And if it's not us, we're asking the question, what are the other possibilities? If it is us, the question is, how do we avoid having to spend tens of millions of dollars digging out of the bucket of our office complex, moving our most vulnerable citizens out in the middle of the night, having displaced workers that we have to place suddenly all over the state. I mean, I just want to remind us that Irene did tremendous destruction. I didn't call up and ask Irene to, please whack us. Nobody else did. And we're all in this together in terms of recovery. And we need Waterbury to join hands with us to make the right decision for the entire state of Vermont.
I spoke to Rebecca Ellis this morning, and she said that if the Waterbury State Complex closes, there are dozens of families that have moved specifically to Waterbury so that they can limit their commute. There are businesses that are completely reliant on the workers, the 1,500 who come into work every day. She's saying that if the Waterbury State Complex leaves, it's going to have a tremendous rippling effect on the Waterbury economy, and I'm just wondering if you could comment on that, please.
Well, there's no question that if anyone were to move 1,500 jobs from one community to another in Vermont, it would have an effect on one part of our state and a positive effect on the other part of the state. We all understand that. The point is, I think that it's incumbent upon us as Vermonters to make the right decisions for Vermont's future and the right decisions for Vermont taxpayers. And as we're asking Vermonters not to rebuild homes in former house sites that now look like riverbeds, to think, to ask questions, to get all of the facts before they rebuild, in the knowledge that we're likely to get more rain delivered to us in higher doses, more intensely than we're accustomed to. The Vermont state has the same responsibility to apply the same logical questions and process to any decisions that we make.
Is there any higher ground in Waterbury that's being eyed? Site for buildings?
Boy, you have to move a lot of bricks. I mean, there's a lot of bricks in those buildings.
I mean, you were talking about a possible new green building,
Oh.
et cetera. I mean, are there sites
We're
in
open to any,
Waterbury?
we're open to any suggestions for a new building, whether it's Waterbury, Montpelier, Barry, or any of the other surrounding communities.
Just public process,
Let me just make a management statement that I've observed since being go. And believe it or not, I didn't pay all that much attention to the executive branch before I got here. I was more focused on the legislative branch, if you look at my history. But one thing I can tell you as a business person is that I do believe that the fractured nature of our current employee workspaces is not conducive to the best interests of taxpayers. That if we could have more people working together under one roof, it would be a good thing for Vermont.
What about the notion, though, that it's better to decentralize those offices and get the people actually closer to the populations where those services are needed?
Well, obviously, the regional offices I'm not talking about, but for example, if the executive branch ideally could be together with AHS, with ANR, with a lot of the other agencies, and if they could be together with each other, I think you'd get a better result. And, change can be a good thing. Let's not forget that if the state had designed the ideal office space, I don't think they would have started with our former mental hospital, broken up into what are really rooms for treatment. And it's always been a challenge. So let's not pretend that we're leaving the office space that we designed for 20%, if we may.
What about the state hospital? There's a letter that came in today from a bunch of mental health advocates basically saying, don't even use it as a temporary space to move these patients back into. Don't use the second floor, don't use it. You as a senator and candidate were against rebuilding the state hospital in that place for using the state hospital. So can you commit to that now? Not to.
I know it's not likely. I can't commit to anything because we're in a crisis and we're managing a crisis. And all I can tell you is that philosophically, I've been very clear that it is a disservice to our most vulnerable Vermonters to house them in the Waterbury complex. The complex is not worthy of the dignity by which we should be treating them. And therefore, I'm no more anxious to put them back there than I was to have them there in the first place. However, our options right now in terms of treatment leave much to be desired. So we're trying to make prudent decisions there, and we'll have you a plan as soon as we can get it. I can tell you I meet on this question at least every other day, sometimes more often, and we're all hands on deck, recognizing that we're in a crisis management.
Just quickly going back to the Waterbury complex, can you address Mike Obuchowski and his wife's relationship at KSE Partnership and how that might impact the rebuilding of that complex in Waterbury?
You've lost me, I'm sorry.
Representative DeGree sent a letter in concerning the relationship with Mike Obuchowski at the Waterbury complex, who's married to
Oh, I see.
a
Geez,
woman at KSE.
It took us almost 60 years to get him to have a couple of babies and get married. Now you want me to do it?
So can you address that relationship and
I
how
worked
that...
hard on that. Vermont's a small state, or an honest state. I don't think there's a Vermonter that would ever question the integrity of either Claire Buckley or Michael Obuchowski, their dedication to the people of Vermont, and their commitment to do what's best for Vermonters. And you constantly see situations in Vermont where husbands and wives have competing interests in their professional life, and I can assure you that it will have absolutely no impact on an objective analysis of going forward.
just on the transparent process, I think you said last week, it'd take until next week for you to outline the steps that would be involved in the evaluation. Is this end of the year type of thing when you?
No, we're going to want to put forth some scenarios, options, as quickly as we have them. I mean, I'll be honest, we're out looking for land. People have land that they'd like to build a state office building on, let us know. If people are interested in purchasing the existing complex or some part of it, partnering with us, we'd like to know. If people think they can figure out ways to mitigate the possibility of flooding in the future, we'd like to know. We're asking all those questions right right down to building a moat up there. I mean, you know, there is no option that will not be on the table. And if people think that they know things that we should know, this is a transparent process, and we would love to have your input.